Hi, welcome everyone. It's a fun idea if you could let us know where you're tuning in from. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and kick things off. I wake up to the sound of birds outside the window, the early morning light creeping through the curtains. The house is quiet, almost too quiet. I reach over to the empty side of the bed where my wife usually sleeps. She's already up, probably getting ready for work. This has become our routine. Silent mornings, distant evenings. The warmth between us has cooled, replaced by a strange, unsettling chill. My name is Jack. I'm 38, successful in my career, and married to Lisa for 10 years. On paper, everything seems perfect. We have the house, the cars, the social status. People look at us and see a power couple. But inside these walls, things are different. Lisa used to be my everything. We were inseparable, always on the same wavelength. But lately, she's been distracted, secretive. I can feel her slipping away, and it's killing me. I sit at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, trying to push the thoughts away. The aroma fills the air, but it does little to calm my nerves. Lisa walks in, dressed impeccably as always. Her hair is done up, makeup flawless. She barely glances at me as she grabs her purse. "I have a meeting tonight. Don't wait up," she says, her tone flat, almost rehearsed. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. She's been having a lot of meetings lately. I used to believe her, used to trust her completely. But now every time she says it, I can't help but wonder who she's really meeting. I've noticed the way she checks her phone, the quick, secretive texts. My gut tells me something is wrong, but I've been too afraid to confront her. What if I'm right? What if she's been lying to me, betraying me? The distance between us grows wider every day. It's like there's a chasm between us and I'm standing on one side, watching her drift further away. I've tried to bridge the gap, tried to talk to her, but every time she brushes me off, says she's tired or stressed from work. The only thing keeping us together now is the image we project to the outside world. That night over dinner, she finally breaks the silence. But what she says shatters the fragile peace between us. "Jack," she starts, her voice calm, too calm. "I've been thinking maybe we should try something different. Maybe an open marriage, just for a little while." I stare at her, my fork suspended in midair. My mind races, trying to process her words. An open marriage? The concept hits me like a punch to the gut. She continues, "Just for one vacation. I need, we need to explore, to see if this is what we really want." My world shifts in that moment. Everything I thought I knew crumbling around me. But I don't let it show. I force a smile, nodding slowly. "If that's what you want, Lisa." My voice is steady, but inside something dark and vengeful stirs. The day she leaves is overcast, fitting for what's about to unfold. I watch from the window as she loads her suitcase into the trunk of the car. She's humming, a tune I can't quite place, but it's light, carefree, and it makes my blood boil. She catches my eye and smiles, that same smile that once melted my heart. Now it feels like a slap to the face. "Don't forget to water the plants," she says, as if this is just another business trip. I nod, keeping my face neutral, my hands tucked into my pockets to hide the fists they formed. The door closes behind her, and I'm alone in the house that has felt increasingly like a prison. But now something shifts. The silence is no longer oppressive. It's liberating. I take a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs, then exhale slowly. I have work to do. I call the private investigator I hired the day after she first mentioned the open marriage. It was my way of preparing, of protecting myself. I needed proof, something concrete. "She's on her way," I say when he picks up. "You know what to do." For the next few days, I receive updates like clockwork. They're at a beachside resort, the same one we used to visit together. The irony isn't lost on me. Photos flood my phone, her in a bikini, laughing with him at a restaurant, their hands intertwined as they walk along the shore. One particularly damning shot captures them kissing passionately in the surf. I study it, memorizing every detail, her hand in his hair, the way she arches into him, the unmistakable intimacy of it. My stomach churns, but I force myself to keep looking, to ingrain the image into my mind. Each photo feels like a knife in the gut, but I keep them all, organizing them into neat folders on my computer. I'm meticulous, making sure everything is backed up, encrypted, secure. I know what I'm doing is borderline obsessive, but I don't care. This is my insurance, my way of controlling the situation. As I compile the evidence, I begin to think about the house. I want it to be perfect when she returns, perfect in the most devastating way. I start in our bedroom, clearing out my clothes, my books, my things. It's a methodical process, one that feels almost therapeutic. The emptiness I create is both literal and symbolic. I'm removing myself from this life, from this farce of a marriage. Once my belongings are out, I get to work on the walls. I print out every photo, every text message she sent him, and I tape them up, covering the space above our bed, then spreading to the walls, the dresser, even the mirror. There's no escape from it. It's a collage of betrayal, a museum of infidelity. I take a step back, admiring my work, feeling a grim satisfaction settle over me. In the center of it all, I hang a sign. Cheating 403. It's a code we used to use back when our relationship was still fun, playful. 403 meant forbidden, off limits. Now it's a cruel reminder of how far we've fallen. The rest of the house follows. I strip it down, leaving only the bare essentials, then plaster more photos. On the fridge, the bathroom mirror, the inside of her closet. It's everywhere, inescapable. By the time I'm done, the house feels less like a home and more like a tomb, a place where our marriage came to die. The night before she's due to return, I stand in the middle of the chaos I've created. The adrenaline that's been driving me begins to fade, replaced by a deep, simmering anger. How could she do this to me? To us? But even as the anger builds, there's a part of me that feels cold, detached. This isn't just about hurting her. It's about reclaiming my power, about making sure she understands the gravity of what she's done. The next morning, I wake up early, too restless to sleep. I pour myself a drink, though it's barely 9 a.m. The alcohol burns as it goes down, but it does little to dull the edge. I'm on high alert, every muscle tense, waiting for her to come home. Finally, I hear her car pull into the driveway. My heart pounds in my chest as I listen to her footsteps approaching the door. She opens it, and there's a moment of silence. Then a gasp, a sharp intake of breath that echoes through the house. I can picture her standing there, frozen, her mind struggling to comprehend what she's seeing. "Jack!" Her voice trembles, uncertain. She walks further into the house, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I don't answer. I'm waiting, savoring the moment. When she reaches the bedroom, I hear her drop something, probably her purse. Then comes the sobbing, a deep, gut-wrenching sound that fills me with a sick sense of satisfaction. She's finally realizing the extent of her betrayal, the full weight of her actions. I wait until the sobs quiet down, then I pick up my phone and call her. She answers on the first ring, her voice choked with tears. "Jack, please, let's talk about this." I stay silent for a moment, letting her sweat. "You have 3 hours to pack your stuff and get out," I say finally, my voice cold, devoid of emotion. "Jack, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" 3 hours up, I repeat, cutting her off. "After that, I'll have the locks changed." I hang up before she can respond, tossing the phone onto the couch. I pour another drink, feeling a strange mix of emotions, relief, anger, and something else I can't quite identify. The power has shifted, and I'm the one in control now. As I sip my drink, I hear her moving around upstairs, her sobs punctuated by the sound of drawers opening and closing, zippers being yanked. She's in a panic, desperate, and I relish every second of it. I don't go upstairs. I don't need to see her face. I've already seen enough. I sit in the living room watching the clock. Each minute that passes feels like a small victory. She took everything from me, my trust, my love, and now I'm taking it all back. An hour passes, then two. I can hear her still moving around, but the sobs have quieted. Maybe she's starting to realize that begging won't work, that I'm done playing the role of the forgiving husband. She doesn't get to walk all over me and then expect me to pick up the pieces. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, I hear her footsteps on the stairs. She hesitates at the bottom, probably hoping for one last chance to plead her case. But I'm not giving it to her. She drags her suitcase across the floor, the wheels catching on the uneven edges of the hardwood. I stay seated, my eyes on the drink in my hand. I don't need to see her walk out. I just need to hear that door close behind her. Jack! Her voice is barely a whisper now, broken, defeated. 3 hours, I say again, not even looking up. The finality in my voice leaves no room for argument. There's a pause, and then she opens the door. The cool air rushes in, and I can almost feel the weight of her presence lifting as she steps outside. The door closes with a soft click, and I'm alone. I sit there for a long time, staring into the amber liquid in my glass. The house is silent again, but it's a different kind of silence now, one that feels more permanent, more oppressive. I should feel victorious, triumphant even, but instead there's just emptiness. I stand up, moving through the house, surveying the wreckage I've created. The photos, the messages, the sign, it all feels hollow now, like a monument to something that never really existed. I thought this would bring me closure, that it would be enough to see her suffer the way I have. But as I look around, all I feel is the weight of what I've lost. My phone buzzes, breaking the silence. It's a message from the private investigator. He sent the final batch of photos along with a video of their last night together. I hesitate for a moment, then open it. The video plays showing them in bed, their bodies tangled together, moving in a rhythm that once belonged to us. It's explicit, raw, and it cuts deeper than any of the photos ever did. I watch it all, forcing myself to see every second, to feel every ounce of pain. When it ends, I delete it, then delete every other photo, every message. It's done. There's nothing more to see, nothing more to keep. I go upstairs, back to the bedroom, and start ripping the photos down. The sign comes off last, the tape tearing a strip of paint with it. The room feels bare now, like a blank canvas, but it's not a relief. It's just another reminder of what's been erased. I lie down on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to remember what it felt like to be happy here, to be in love. But the memories are distant, fuzzy around the edges. All I can see now is the betrayal, the way she looked at him, the way she touched him. The anger comes in waves, crashing over me, pulling me under. I want to scream, to tear this house apart, to destroy everything that reminds me of her. But instead, I just lie there, letting it wash over me, letting it drown me. By the time the 3 hours are up, I'm numb. I hear the car pull away, the tires crunching on the gravel. I don't move, I can't. I've done what I set out to do. I've made her pay. But in the silence that follows, all I'm left with is the realization that nothing will ever be the same again. Lisa tries calling the next day. I let it ring, watching her name flash on my phone screen. The calls keep coming, 5, 10, 20 times. I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the photos still taped to the wall. They look different now, less powerful. The house is quiet again, too quiet, and I hate it. I need noise, so I turn on the TV, cranking up the volume to drown out the ringing. My phone buzzes with texts, her words desperate, pleading for a chance to talk. She's sorry, she says. She'll do anything to make it right. My heart twists, a part of me wanting to give in, to let her explain. But then I remember the images, the betrayal. The pain hardens into resolve. By the time night falls, the calls have stopped. The silence is back, suffocating, pressing down on me like a weight. I thought I'd feel relief, satisfaction even, but all I feel is emptiness. I keep waiting for that sense of victory, but it never comes. 2 days later, Lisa shows up at the house. I hear her car pull into the driveway, the engine cutting off abruptly. I don't move from the couch. There's a knock on the door, soft at first, then louder, more insistent. Jack, please, please, let me in. Her voice cracks, raw with emotion. I close my eyes, gripping the armrest until my knuckles turn white. I can't let her see me like this. Weak, vulnerable. Not after everything. She keeps knocking, begging me to open the door. The sound grates on my nerves, each knock like a hammer against my skull. Finally, she stops. I hear her slide down against the door, her sobs muffled by the wood. She stays there for what feels like hours, crying, pleading. It's only when I hear her car start up again that I allow myself to breathe. I wake up the next morning to find an envelope slipped under the door. I pick it up knowing it's from her. Inside is a letter, handwritten, the ink smudged in places where her tears must have fallen. The words blur as I read, but the gist is clear. She's sorry, more sorry than she's ever been for anything. She loves me, she says, and she was wrong, so wrong, to do what she did. She begs for a second chance, swears she'll do anything to make it right. I tear the letter in half, then again, until it's nothing but tiny pieces scattered across the floor. I won't let her manipulate me, won't let her worm her way back into my life with empty promises. But the anger I expect to feel doesn't come. Instead, there's just a dull ache, a sense of loss that I can't shake. Days turn into weeks. Lisa stops calling, stops showing up at the house. I should be grateful, but the silence eats away at me, gnawing at my insides like a disease. I spend my days at work, throwing myself into projects, trying to drown out the thoughts that keep creeping in. But no matter how hard I work, I can't escape the memories. They haunt me, playing on a loop in my mind. One night after a long day at the office, I come home to find a familiar car parked in the driveway. My heart skips a beat as I pull in behind it. Lisa is sitting on the front steps, her head in her hands. She looks up as I approach, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Jack. Her voice is hoarse, barely more than a whisper. What do you want, Lisa? I ask, my tone cold, detached. It's the only way I can keep myself from breaking. She stands up, brushing the tears from her cheeks. I know you don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you. Please, just hear me out. I cross my arms, leaning against the porch railing. I don't have anything to say to you. I know, she says, nodding quickly like she expected this. I know I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But I can't live like this, Jack. I can't live with the thought of losing you. You should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with someone else. She flinches, her face crumpling as fresh tears spill over. I know, and I'm sorry. I was stupid, and I took you for granted. But I love you, Jack. I love you so much, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. I shake my head, the words bouncing off me like rubber. It's too late, Lisa. You made your choice. She takes a step closer, her hands trembling as she reaches out to touch me. Jack, please, please let me make it right. I'll do anything. We can close the marriage, go back to the way things were. I'll never even look at another man, I swear. Her touch is warm, familiar, and for a moment I almost give in. But then I remember the photos, the messages, the way she looked at him. My resolve hardens and I pull away, stepping out of her reach. You think you can just take it all back? That we can pretend none of this ever happened? No, she says, shaking her head furiously. No, I know I can't erase it. But we can start over, build something new. Please, Jack, don't throw us away. I stare at her, searching for the woman I once loved, but all I see is a stranger. We're already gone, Lisa. There's nothing left to save. Her face crumples and she lets out a choked sob. I love you, Jack. I'll always love you. Then you'll learn to live without me. I turn away, not trusting myself to look at her any longer. You should leave. She doesn't move, frozen in place. Jack, go. The word comes out harsher than I intended, but it does the job. She stumbles back, her breath hitching as she turns and hurries to her car. I listen to the sound of the engine fading into the distance, and when it's finally gone, I let out a long, shaky breath. The days blur together after that. I bury myself in work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects just to keep my mind occupied. It works to some extent, but the emptiness follows me wherever I go. Even the house feels different now, hollow, like it's missing something vital. One evening, I come home to find a letter waiting for me. It's from Lisa, but this time it's not handwritten. It's a formal notice. She's filed for divorce. My heart stops for a moment, then starts again, pounding in my chest like a drum. I read the letter over and over, the words blurring together as the reality of it sinks in. She's asking for half of everything: our house, our savings, my business. The audacity of it makes my blood boil. After everything she's done, she has the nerve to try and take what's mine? My hands shake as I crumple the letter, tossing it into the trash. She won't get away with this. I'll make sure of it. The next day, I call my lawyer. We spend hours going over the details, planning our strategy. I hand over the evidence, the photos, the messages, everything I've collected. My lawyer is impressed, calling it a slam dunk case. But all I feel is a cold, simmering rage. Lisa thinks she can hurt me, can drag me down with her. She has no idea who she's dealing with. The divorce proceedings begin, and the courtroom becomes a battlefield. Lisa shows up with her own lawyer, a smug-looking man in a designer suit. They try to paint me as the villain, claiming I was distant, neglectful, that I drove her to seek comfort elsewhere. But I have the evidence on my side, and I'm not afraid to use it. I sit there stone-faced as my lawyer presents the photos, the messages, the damning proof of her infidelity. Lisa pales as the evidence is laid out, her confidence crumbling with every passing minute. The courtroom is silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I can see the judge's expression shift, his eyes narrowing as he takes in the details. Lisa's lawyer tries to object, but it's useless. The damage is done. By the time it's over, Lisa looks defeated, her eyes hollow as she stares at the floor. I expect to feel triumphant, to relish in my victory, but all I feel is exhaustion. The fight has taken its toll on both of us, and there's nothing left but the bitter taste of ashes. A few days later, I receive another letter. It's from Lisa's lawyer informing me that she's dropping her claim to the house and the business. The letter is brief, clinical, but the message is clear. She's given up. She's leaving with nothing. I sit down, the letter trembling in my hand. I should feel relieved, victorious even, but instead there's just a hollow ache in my chest. I won the battle, but at what cost? The house feels emptier than ever, the silence oppressive, suffocating. I wander through the rooms, each one a reminder of what I've lost. A few weeks later, I run into one of Lisa's friends at a coffee shop. She's hesitant at first, unsure of how to approach me, but eventually she comes over and sits down. "I'm sorry about everything, Jack," she says, her voice soft, empathetic. I thought you should know, Lisa's not doing well." I look up, my stomach twisting. "What do you mean?" "She's lost a lot since the divorce. Her job, her apartment. It's like she's given up on everything." I nod, the news hitting me harder than I expected. I should be happy. I should feel vindicated. But instead, there's a deep, unsettling sadness gnawing at me. "Thanks for telling me," I say, my voice thick. She gives me a sad smile and gets up to leave. I sit there for a long time, staring into my coffee, trying to make sense of it all. The revenge I so carefully orchestrated, the destruction I unleashed, it all feels meaningless now, like a cruel joke with no punchline. The next morning, I get another call, this time from my lawyer. Lisa has filed a new motion, this one demanding a significant portion of my assets. My anger flares up again, hotter this time, like a fire rekindled. She's not done fighting after all. The courtroom is set to be a battleground once more. But when the day arrives, Lisa's late. Her lawyer is there, tapping his pen impatiently, but there's no sign of her. The judge delays the start time, waiting for her to arrive, but eventually we proceed without her. The hearing is short, the evidence stacked heavily in my favor. The judge rules in my favor, dismissing her claims with a stern rebuke. I leave the courtroom feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Relief, yes, but also a deep, unshakable sadness. I won, but it feels like a hollow victory. Lisa didn't even show up to fight. Later that evening, I'm at home when I get a text from Lisa. It's short, just 2 words. I'm sorry. I stare at the message for a long time, my mind racing. Sorry for what? For what she did to us? Or for what she's about to do? I try to call her, but she doesn't answer. Panic grips me, and I call her friends, her family, anyone who might know where she is. No one has seen her. The night stretches on, each passing hour twisting the knot in my stomach tighter. The next day, I get the call I've been dreading. Lisa's body is found in a hotel room, an empty bottle of pills by her side. She left a note, just a few lines scrawled on hotel stationery. I'm sorry, Jack. I couldn't live with what I did to you, to us. I hope you can find peace. The courtroom is cold, sterile. The walls are a dull gray, the kind that drains the life out of anything vibrant. The air smells of paper and dust, mixed with the faint scent of sweat. I sit at the table, my lawyer beside me, shuffling through papers, his expression unreadable. I feel the weight of the room pressing down on me, the gravity of what's about to unfold. Lisa sits across from me, her face pale, her eyes rimmed with dark circles. She looks like a ghost of the woman I once knew, but there's a hardness in her gaze that wasn't there before. Her lawyer whispers something in her ear, and she nods stiffly, never breaking eye contact with me. There's no love left between us, only the raw, simmering hate that years of betrayal and hurt have forged. The judge enters, and we all stand. His voice is a monotone, a low drone that barely registers in my mind. I'm too focused on Lisa, on the way her hands tremble slightly as she grips the edge of the table. I used to know every inch of her, every tell in her body language, but now she's a mystery to me, a stranger with a familiar face. The proceedings begin, and it's brutal. My lawyer goes straight for the jugular, laying out the evidence of her affair in meticulous detail. The photos, the messages, the video, it's all there, displayed on the screen for everyone to see. I watch her face as each piece of evidence is presented, waiting for the cracks to show, but she remains stoic, her jaw clenched tight. When it's her turn to speak, she takes a deep breath, steeling herself. Your Honor, I admit that I made a mistake. I was unfaithful, and I regret it every day. But this, she gestures to the screen, to the damning images. This was an act of revenge. My husband manipulated me into agreeing to an open marriage, knowing full well what he was planning. He set me up. Her voice is steady, but there's a tremor beneath it, a vulnerability that she's trying desperately to hide. I feel a pang of something, guilt maybe, or regret, but I push it down hard. I can't afford to feel anything for her now. The judge's eyes narrow as he listens, his gaze shifting between us. He doesn't say much, just asks a few questions, probing, trying to get to the heart of it. I can see him weighing her words, considering her side of the story. It makes me uneasy. My lawyer senses it too and doubles down, hammering home the point that her actions destroyed our marriage, that she's only trying to deflect blame now that she's caught. Then just when I think we've got her cornered, she drops the bombshell. I'm pregnant. The words hang in the air, heavy, suffocating. The courtroom falls silent. I feel the ground shift beneath me, everything tilting on its axis. My heart pounds in my chest, a wild, erratic beat that I can't control. What did you say? My voice comes out strangled, barely above a whisper. She meets my eyes, and for the first time, I see a flicker of something in her gaze. Fear, maybe, or hope. I'm pregnant, Jack. It's yours. My mind races trying to process what she's saying. The timeline doesn't make sense. We haven't been together in months, not since before the affair. But then, doubt creeps in, worming its way into my thoughts. What if she's telling the truth? What if, despite everything, this child is mine? The judge looks between us, his expression unreadable. We'll need to verify this claim. he says, his voice measured. A paternity test will be ordered. I nod, numb, unable to find my voice. Lisa just stares at me, her eyes pleading, as if this child could somehow erase everything that's happened, as if it could be a fresh start. The days that follow are a blur. I go through the motions, barely registering what's happening around me. The paternity test looms over everything, a dark cloud that I can't escape. I swing between anger and fear, my emotions a tangled mess. One moment I'm convinced that she's lying, that this is just another ploy to manipulate me. The next I'm terrified that she's telling the truth, that this child is mine, and that I'll be tied to her forever. The night before the results come in, I lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, memories of our life together, of how it all went so wrong. I think about the child, about what it would mean to be a father. It's a future I hadn't considered, one that I'm not sure I want. The next morning, the results arrive. I sit in the lawyer's office, the envelope in my hands, my heart pounding so loudly I can barely hear anything else. I tear it open, my hands shaking. The words blur together, and I have to read them twice before they sink in. The child isn't mine. Relief washes over me, so strong it nearly knocks me over. But it's quickly followed by a surge of anger, hot and fierce. She lied. She tried to trap me, to tie me to her with a lie. I can't let this go unpunished. I storm into the courtroom, the paper clenched in my fist. Lisa looks up as I enter, her expression guarded. I slam the envelope down on the table, the sound echoing in the small space. You lied, I hiss, my voice low and dangerous. You tried to manipulate me. She flinches but doesn't respond, her eyes wide with something that looks like fear. The judge takes the paper, reading it carefully. His gaze hardens as he looks at her. Mrs. Tanner, do you have anything to say for yourself? She shakes her head, her face pale. I thought... You thought wrong, I snap, cutting her off. You were trying to use me, to drag me down with you. Well, it didn't work. The judge sighs, rubbing his temples as if this whole thing is giving him a headache. Given this new information, I'm inclined to side with Mr. Tanner on the remaining issues. I watch as the color drains from Lisa's face, her last hope slipping away. The judge's ruling is swift, brutal. She gets nothing. No house, no money, no support. The divorce is final, and she's left with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. I should feel victorious as I leave the courtroom, but there's a hollowness inside me that I can't shake. The anger, the rage, it's all spent now, leaving me empty. I got what I wanted. Revenge, justice, whatever you want to call it. But it feels like a Pyrrhic victory. The cost has been too high. Days turn into weeks, and life goes on. The house is mine. The business is mine. But none of it brings me any satisfaction. I thought that winning would make everything better, that it would give me closure, but instead it's only deepened the void inside me. I think about the child, about how close I came to being tied to Lisa forever. I wonder what will happen to them, to her. I shouldn't care, but I do, and it eats at me. I don't sleep much anymore. The house is too quiet, the silence too loud. I wander through the rooms at night, unable to shake the feeling that I've lost something I can't get back. One evening, as I'm sitting alone in the living room, I get a call from Lisa's friend, the same one who told me about Lisa's struggles. Her voice is hesitant, almost afraid. Jack, I thought you should know. Lisa's not doing well. I feel a pang of something, a mix of guilt and concern. What do you mean? She's in a bad place, Jack. She lost everything in the divorce, and now, well, she's struggling. I think she's really hurting. I close my eyes, trying to push away the guilt that's gnawing at me. What do you want me to do about it? I don't know. Maybe just reach out? Talk to her. I think she could really use someone right now. I hang up, her words echoing in my mind. I don't owe Lisa anything, not after everything she's done, but the thought of her suffering, of her being alone, it gnaws at me. I can't ignore it. The next day I drive to her apartment. The building is old, run down, a far cry from the life we used to share. I stand outside her door, my hand hovering over the doorknob, unsure of what I'm doing here. Finally, I knock. She opens the door and I barely recognize her. She's thinner, her eyes hollow, her skin pale. There's a haunted look in her eyes, a vulnerability that wasn't there before. Jack. Her voice is a whisper, full of disbelief. I heard you were struggling, I say, my voice gruff, unsure of how to proceed. She nods, tears welling up in her eyes. I've lost everything, Jack. I don't know what to do. For a moment, I'm at a loss for words. The anger that once drove me is gone, replaced by something else. Pity, maybe, or something softer. I reach out, my hand brushing against hers. We need to talk. She lets me in, and we sit down in the tiny living room. The air between us is thick with tension, but there's also something else. A flicker of the connection we once had, buried under the layers of hurt and betrayal. We talk, for hours it seems, about everything. About the past, the present, the future. It's painful, raw, but necessary. Eventually, the conversation turns to the child. What about the baby? I ask, my voice quiet. She hesitates, then looks down at her hands, twisting them in her lap. I'm not keeping it, Jack. I can't. Not after everything. I don't know what to say to that. There's a part of me that's relieved, another part that feels a deep, aching sadness. The child, the one thing that could have changed everything, is gone. We sit in silence for a long time after that, the weight of everything hanging between us. Finally, I stand up. I should go. She nods, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Jack, for coming. I leave, my mind swirling with thoughts, my heart heavy. The drive home is long, the road stretching out before me, empty and dark. The house is cold when I get back, the silence pressing down on me like a weight. I wander through the rooms, the memories of our life together haunting me. I lie down in bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to find some sense of peace, but it eludes me. The revenge I sought has left me empty, hollow. I thought it would bring closure, but instead it's only deepened the wound. I close my eyes, the darkness swallowing me whole, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself cry. The paternity test results are a weapon in my hands, and I wield them with precision. My lawyer is ruthless, dissecting the evidence in front of the judge, painting a vivid picture of Lisa's deceit. Her affair, her lies, the fake pregnancy claim, it's all laid bare in the courtroom. There's no room for sympathy here. This is war, and I'm winning. Lisa sits across from me, her face pale, her eyes downcast. She doesn't even try to defend herself anymore. The fight has drained out of her, and what's left is a shell of the woman I once knew. I thought seeing her like this would bring me satisfaction, a sense of closure, but all I feel is a gnawing emptiness. The judge rules in my favor. The divorce is final, and she walks away with nothing. No house, no money, no future. I should feel triumphant as I watch her leave the courtroom, her shoulders hunched, her steps unsteady. Instead, I feel hollow, as if the victory I fought so hard for is nothing more than ashes in my mouth. Back at the house, I try to immerse myself in the familiar routines, but everything feels off, disconnected. The house is mine, but it feels like a museum, full of relics from a life I no longer recognize. The bed where we once slept, the kitchen where we shared meals, it's all tainted now, stained with the memories of betrayal and revenge. I go through the motions, but I can't shake the sense that something vital has been lost. The thrill of revenge has faded, leaving behind a cold void. I thought this would make everything better, that it would give me the closure I craved, but instead it's left me with a deep, aching sense of loss. Work becomes my refuge. I throw myself into my business, taking on more projects, staying late at the office. The hustle and bustle of the workplace are a welcome distraction from the silence that haunts my house. But even here, I can't escape the memories. Every quiet moment is an opportunity for my mind to wander, to replay the events that led me to this point. My colleagues notice the change in me, but they don't say anything. They give me space, which only makes the isolation worse. I'm surrounded by people, but I've never felt more alone. The satisfaction I once took in my work has dulled, replaced by a numbness that I can't seem to shake. One evening, after another long day at the office, I'm sitting in my car, staring at the steering wheel, when I realize that I don't want to go home. The thought of walking into that empty house, of facing the silence again, fills me with a sense of dread. I feel trapped, caught between a life I've destroyed and a future that seems bleak and uncertain. I start driving, with no destination in mind. The city lights blur as I pass by, and for a while I just let the motion of the car soothe me. I end up at a bar, a dimly lit place that I've never been to before. I order a drink, then another, the alcohol burning a path down my throat, numbing the edges of my thoughts. As the night wears on, I find myself talking to the bartender, a middle-aged man with a grizzled beard and kind eyes. I don't tell him the whole story, just bits and pieces, enough to get it off my chest. He listens without judgment, nodding at the right moments, offering a few words of advice that I know are meant to be comforting. "You gotta let go, man," he says, leaning on the bar. Revenge, anger, it eats you up inside. You think it'll make you feel better, but it doesn't. It just leaves you empty. I know he's right, but the thought of letting go feels impossible. How do you move on from something like this? How do you rebuild when everything you once believed in has been shattered? I leave the bar with a heavy heart, the bartender's words echoing in my mind. The drive home is a blur, and when I finally crawl into bed, I lie there for hours, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The house is too quiet, the memories too loud. Days pass, and the emptiness inside me grows. I can't escape the feeling that I've lost something intangible, something that I can't ever get back. The revenge I sought so fiercely has cost me more than I realized. It's taken not just my marriage, but a part of myself as well. I begin to question everything. Was it worth it? The pain, the anger, the destruction? Did any of it bring me peace? Or have I simply traded one kind of misery for another? I can't answer these questions, but they haunt me, driving me deeper into a spiral of regret and self-doubt. I stop going to the bar, stop talking to the bartender. I don't want advice. I don't want comfort. I just want to be alone with my thoughts, to figure out where it all went wrong. One afternoon, I get a call from my lawyer. He's calling to finalize some details to close the book on the divorce once and for all. As we talk, he mentions that Lisa's lover has lost his job, that his reputation has been ruined by the scandal. My revenge has extended beyond Lisa, reaching out to destroy him as well. I should feel satisfaction, but instead I feel a pang of guilt. I've ruined not just one life, but two. And for what? A sense of justice? A desire to make them pay for what they did to me? The lines between right and wrong have blurred, and I'm left questioning whether I've become the very thing I despised. After I hang up, I sit at my desk, staring at the papers in front of me. The legal documents, the evidence of my victory, it all feels meaningless now. I wonder if there's a way to undo some of the damage, to make amends. But the path to redemption seems impossibly steep. The next few weeks are a blur. I go through the motions, but my heart isn't in it. I'm haunted by the choices I've made, by the person I've become. The house, once a symbol of my success, now feels like a prison, a constant reminder of the life I've destroyed. One evening, as I'm sitting in the living room, I hear a car pull into the driveway. My heart skips a beat, and for a moment, I wonder if it's Lisa. But when I look out the window, I see that it's just a neighbor, someone I barely know. The disappointment that washes over me is a surprise, a reminder that despite everything, a part of me still longs for her, still misses what we had. I try to push those feelings away, to bury them beneath the layers of anger and regret, but they keep resurfacing, gnawing at me, refusing to be ignored. One night, I dream about Lisa. In the dream, we're back in the early days of our marriage, when everything was new and exciting. We're laughing, holding hands, making love with a passion that feels both familiar and distant. But then the dream shifts, and I see her with him, her lover, the man who destroyed everything. The laughter fades, replaced by tears, by the sound of betrayal echoing in my mind. I wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. The dream lingers, its edges sharp and painful. I can't shake the feeling that I've lost something irreplaceable, something that no amount of revenge or justice can bring back. I spend the next few days in a daze, unable to focus on anything. The house feels more oppressive than ever, the silence deafening. I avoid the rooms we shared, avoid the memories that seem to haunt every corner. I start thinking about selling the house, about leaving it all behind, but the thought of starting over feels too overwhelming. One evening, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of whiskey in my hand, when the doorbell rings. I'm not expecting anyone, and the sound startles me. I set the glass down and walk to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. When I open the door, I'm met with a face I didn't expect to see. Lisa's lover. He looks as bad as I feel, his eyes bloodshot, his hair disheveled. He's holding something in his hand, a small envelope. "I need to talk to you," he says, his voice rough, strained. I step back, letting him in, though every instinct is telling me to slam the door in his face. He walks into the living room, looking around as if he's seeing the place for the first time. I follow him, my mind racing, trying to make sense of why he's here. He hands me the envelope, his hand shaking. "I found this," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I open the envelope, pulling out a letter. It's from Lisa, dated just before the divorce was finalized. As I read the words, my heart sinks. It's a confession, a letter she wrote to him, explaining everything, how she lied about the pregnancy, how she tried to manipulate me, how she regretted everything she did. The letter is raw, full of pain and remorse. It's clear that she was struggling, that the weight of her actions was crushing her. As I read the final lines, a lump forms in my throat. "I'm sorry," the letter ends. "I wish I could take it all back, but it's too late. I've lost everything. I just hope one day you can both forgive me." I lower the letter, my hands trembling. The weight of her words hits me like a tidal wave, washing over me, pulling me under. I look up at him, and for the first time I see the pain in his eyes, the guilt that's eating him alive. "I didn't know," he says, his voice breaking. "I didn't know she was this broken. I thought, I thought she was happy." I can't find the words to respond. The letter, the guilt, the overwhelming sense of loss. It's too much. I sit down on the couch, burying my face in my hands, trying to make sense of it all. He stands there for a moment, then turns to leave. "I'm sorry," he says again, his voice hollow, "for everything." I hear the door close behind him, and I'm left alone with my thoughts, with the letter, with the crushing realization that revenge has cost me more than I ever imagined. The victory I sought is meaningless now, a hollow achievement that's left me more broken than I was before. I thought I could destroy Lisa, but in the process, I've destroyed myself. The emptiness inside me is all that remains, a void that I don't know how to fill. As I sit there staring at the letter, the words blurring together, I finally understand the truth. Revenge hasn't brought me peace. It's only deepened the wound, leaving me more lost, more alone than ever before. I see her on a crowded street, a random chance in a city this size. It's been months since the divorce was finalized. Months since I last heard her voice, saw her face. But there she is, just across the street, holding the hand of a man I don't recognize. He's tall, well-dressed, and the way she looks at him, it's different. There's no tension in her shoulders, no trace of the guilt that used to weigh her down. She looks happy. I shouldn't care. I should turn around, walk away, pretend I didn't see her. But something stops me, something deep in my gut that I can't ignore. I step forward, crossing the street, weaving through the crowd until I'm standing just a few feet away from them. "Lisa!" She turns at the sound of my voice, her eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, she doesn't say anything, just stares at me like she's seen a ghost. Then she gives the man's hand a squeeze and he nods, stepping back to give us space. "Jack," she says, her voice soft, guarded. "What are you doing here?" "Just passing through," I lie, my eyes flicking to the man who's now standing a few feet away, watching us with a curious expression. "Who's he?" She hesitates, then sighs. "His name's David. We met a few months ago." I nod, trying to ignore the way my stomach twists at the sight of her with someone new. "You look happy," I say, the words coming out more bitter than I intended. "I am," she replies, her gaze steady. "I'm trying to move on, Jack. I hope you are too." I laugh, a short, harsh sound. "Moving on? Is that what you call it?" Her eyes narrow, a flash of anger in them. "What do you want, Jack? You got what you wanted. The divorce is over. The money is gone. My reputation is ruined. Isn't that enough?" I don't answer right away. My mind is racing, trying to find the right words, but all I feel is that gnawing emptiness, the same void that's been growing inside me since this all began. "Is it enough for you? What do you mean? Are you really happy, Lisa? Or is this just another lie you're telling yourself?" She flinches, her expression hardening. "I'm not lying, Jack. I'm trying to rebuild my life. Yes, I made mistakes, huge ones, but I can't keep living in the past. Neither should you." The words hit me harder than I expected, like a punch to the gut. I thought seeing her would bring me some kind of closure, some sense of finality, but all it's done is reopen old wounds. I glance at David, who's still standing nearby, watching us with an uneasy expression. "Does he know?" She follows my gaze, her shoulders tensing. "He knows enough." "Enough," I scoff, shaking my head. "Does he know how you destroyed us? How you tried to trap me with a fake pregnancy? How you lied and cheated?" "Stop it, Jack," she snaps, her voice trembling with emotion. "This isn't fair. You've punished me enough. I'm trying to move on, to be a better person. You should do the same." The anger flares up again, hot and sudden, but it fades just as quickly, leaving behind only the familiar hollow ache. I take a step back, running a hand through my hair. "Maybe you're right," I mutter, more to myself than to her. She doesn't say anything, just watches me with those haunted eyes. There's something different in her gaze now, something I can't quite place. It's almost as if she's looking at me with pity, and that realization cuts deeper than any of her betrayals. "Goodbye, Jack," she says finally, turning to walk away. David steps forward, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, guiding her through the crowd. I watch them go, my mind spinning, my chest tight with emotions I don't know how to process. I should feel relieved that it's over, that she's out of my life for good. But instead, all I feel is the crushing weight of everything I've lost. For the next few days, I try to throw myself back into work, into the routine that's kept me afloat since the divorce. But something's different now. The sense of purpose I once had is gone, replaced by a lingering doubt that gnaws at me, day and night. Small things start to go wrong, little details slipping through the cracks. I miss meetings, forget deadlines. Business deals that were once a sure thing fall apart at the last minute. My colleagues notice, and the whispers start, rumors of my failing grip on the company. I can see the concern in their eyes, the way they tread carefully around me, as if I'm a ticking time bomb. But it's not just work. My personal life begins to unravel as well. Friends who once stood by me start to distance themselves, their excuses thin and transparent. I can see it in their eyes. They're afraid of getting too close, of being dragged down by the darkness that's consuming me. The isolation, once a refuge, becomes a prison. Each day, a reminder of the emptiness I can't escape. I start to wonder if Lisa was right, if the universe is punishing me for what I did. The paranoia creeps in, slow at first, but then all at once. I begin to see her hand in everything that goes wrong, a subtle revenge playing out in the background of my life. Every failure, every betrayal, it all feels like her doing, a twisted echo of the revenge I sought against her. The thoughts grow darker, more consuming. I start to see her everywhere, in the faces of strangers on the street, in the whispers of the people around me. The line between reality and paranoia blurs, and I begin to question my sanity, to wonder if I'm losing control. I can't take it anymore. I need answers, closure, something to end this spiral before it consumes me completely. I decide to confront her one last time, to demand the truth, whatever it may be. I find out where she's living now, a small house in a quiet neighborhood, far from the city's noise. The place is modest, nothing like the life we once shared. As I stand outside staring at the front door, I feel a sense of dread, a sick feeling in my gut that I can't shake. I knock on the door, the sound loud in the stillness of the evening. There's no answer at first, and for a moment, I wonder if she's even home. But then the door opens, and there she is, standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Jack," she says, her voice neutral, calm. "What are you doing here?" I don't know how to start, how to find the words to explain why I'm here. "We need to talk," I say finally, the words feeling hollow even as I say them. She steps aside, letting me in. The house is simple, sparsely furnished, a far cry from the home we once shared. There's a warmth to it, though, something that feels out of place given the tension between us. I sit down on the couch, my mind racing, trying to find the right words. She sits across from me, her eyes never leaving mine. "Why are you really here, Jack?" The question hangs in the air, and I struggle to answer it. "I need to know, is it you?" She frowns, confused. "What do you mean? Are you doing this to me?" "The business deals, the friendships falling apart. Are you behind it?" She stares at me for a long moment, and then she does something I don't expect. She laughs, a soft, almost pitying sound. "Jack, I'm not doing anything to you. This is your own doing." "What? You think I have the power to ruin your life? After everything that's happened, you still don't see it, do you? You're the one destroying yourself, Jack. Not me. Not anyone else." "Just you?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I sit there, stunned, unable to respond. She stands up, walking over to the window, looking out into the night. "I've tried to move on, to find some kind of peace. But you're still stuck in the past, still holding on to all that anger and pain. It's eating you alive, and if you don't let go, it's going to destroy you." I want to argue, to lash out, to tell her she's wrong, but the truth is, I can't. Deep down, I know she's right. The revenge I sought so desperately has left me with nothing but ashes, and the fire that once burned so brightly inside me has consumed everything in its path. She turns back to me, her expression softening. "Jack, it's time to let go. You need to find a way to move on, to rebuild your life. Holding on to all this, it's not worth it." I sit there, the weight of her words pressing down on me, suffocating me. I came here looking for closure, for answers, but all I found is the painful truth that I've been running from all along. I stand up, feeling unsteady, as if the ground beneath me is shifting. I need to go." She doesn't stop me, doesn't try to argue. She just nods, a sad smile on her face. "Take care of yourself, Jack." I leave the house, the night air cool against my skin. As I walk away, the realization sinks in, heavy and inescapable. I've been my own worst enemy, and the only way to escape this hell is to let go, to finally put the past behind me. But as I drive away, the path to redemption feels impossibly steep, and I can't shake the feeling that the damage has already been done. The house is quiet, almost unnervingly so. I sit in the living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the only sound in the stillness. The sun is setting outside, casting long shadows across the floor. The air feels heavy, thick with a sense of finality that I can't shake. I've spent hours replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of how I ended up here. I've lost so much: my marriage, my sanity, my sense of who I am. The revenge that once consumed me feels like a distant memory, a fire that burned too hot and too fast, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. I think back to the last time I saw Lisa, to the way she looked at me with those haunted eyes, the pity in her voice when she told me to let go. Her words have been echoing in my mind ever since, a constant reminder of the path I've taken, the choices I've made, the satisfaction I thought I'd feel from winning, from seeing her suffer the way I did, never came. Instead, all I feel is this gnawing emptiness, this hollow ache that refuses to go away. I've been my own worst enemy, blinded by anger, consumed by the need to make her pay. And in doing so, I've destroyed not just her, but myself as well. My phone buzzes on the table, jolting me from my thoughts. It's a message from one of my colleagues, another deal that's fallen through, another client lost. It's the third one this month. I know I should care, that I should be fighting to keep my business afloat, but I can't bring myself to muster the energy. Everything feels pointless, like I'm just going through the motions, pretending to care when I don't. I stand up, walking through the house, the memories clinging to me like shadows. Every room holds a reminder of what was, of the life I once had, the love I once knew. But those memories are tainted now, poisoned by betrayal, by the bitterness that's taken root in my heart. I find myself in the bedroom, staring at the spot where that cruel sign once hung above our bed. Cheating 403. The words feel meaningless now, a relic of a past I no longer recognize. I've torn down the photos, scrubbed the walls clean, but the stain remains, etched into my soul. I sit on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. I'm tired, so tired of fighting, of carrying this weight around with me. I close my eyes, the darkness pressing in, and I let myself feel it all. The pain, the regret, the overwhelming sense of loss. I let it wash over me, drowning me in its depths, and for the first time, I don't try to fight it. The house feels like a tomb, a monument to everything I've lost, and I can't stay here anymore. I need to leave, to get out before it consumes me completely. I pack a bag, just the essentials, and as I walk through the house one last time, I realize that I'm not just leaving a place. I'm leaving behind a part of myself, a part I don't want to carry with me anymore. The drive is long, the road stretching out before me, endless and empty. I don't have a destination in mind, just a need to keep moving, to put as much distance between myself and that house as possible. The sun has long since set, the night wrapping around me like a shroud, but I keep going, the miles blurring together in the darkness. Eventually, I find myself on a deserted stretch of road, the kind that seems to go on forever. I pull over, the engine idling as I sit there, staring out into the void. The silence is deafening, the weight of everything pressing down on me, and I feel like I'm suffocating under it. I get out of the car, the cold night air biting at my skin, and I walk a few steps away from the road, the gravel crunching under my feet. I look up at the sky, the stars scattered across the inky blackness, and for a moment, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, there's something out there, something bigger than all of this, something that can give me the answers I'm searching for. But the sky remains silent, indifferent to my pain, and I realize that the answers I'm looking for aren't out there. They're inside me, buried deep beneath the anger and the bitterness, the guilt and the regret. I take a deep breath, the cold air burning in my lungs, and I make a decision. It's time to stop running, to stop trying to escape the past. It's time to face it, to face myself, and to start the long, painful process of rebuilding. I get back in the car, turning it around, and I drive back the way I came. The road familiar now, the miles ticking by with a sense of purpose. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I can't keep living like this, trapped in a cycle of anger and regret. I need to find a way to forgive myself, to let go of the past and start over. It won't be easy. The scars I carry are deep, the wounds still fresh, but I know that I can't keep carrying this weight around with me. I need to find a way to move on, to rebuild my life without the bitterness that's consumed me for so long. When I finally reach the house, it's just as I left it, dark and silent, the memories waiting for me inside. But something's different now. I'm different. I know that I can't change the past, can't undo the choices I've made, but I can choose to move forward, to find a way to live with the mistakes I've made. I step inside, the familiar scent of the house washing over me, and I take a moment to let it all sink in. This is where it all started, where everything fell apart, but it's also where I'll begin to rebuild. I walk through the house, turning on the lights, and for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of hope, a flicker of something that's been missing for too long. It's fragile, tentative, but it's there, and I cling to it like a lifeline. I sit down at the kitchen table, the silence comforting now, and I let out a long, shaky breath. The road ahead is long, the journey uncertain, but I'm ready to face it, to face myself, and to start over. As I sit there, the memories swirling around me, I realize that the revenge I sought so desperately was never about Lisa. It was about me, about the pain I couldn't bear to face, the wounds I refused to acknowledge. And in trying to destroy her, I nearly destroyed myself. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. The scars will never fully heal. The damage is done. But I know now that I have a choice. I can let the past consume me, or I can choose to move forward, to rebuild my life one step at a time. It won't be easy, but it's a start. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally on the right path. The sun rises outside, the first light of dawn filtering through the windows, and I take it as a sign, a reminder that no matter how dark the night, there's always a new day waiting. I stand up, feeling a sense of calm settle over me, and I make a promise to myself. I will rebuild. I will move on. And I will find a way to live with the choices I've made. As I stand there alone in the quiet house, I know that the journey ahead won't be easy. The road to redemption is long and full of obstacles, but I'm ready to face it. The scars I carry are a part of me, a reminder of the past, but they don't have to define my future. I have the power to choose, to rebuild, and to find a way to live with the choices I've made. And as the first rays of sunlight touch the horizon, I take a step forward, ready to face whatever comes next.